Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another week of BlastCast. I am Jarvis, and of course, with me, as always, is my bastion of common sense, Lightning Dragon. And of course, a few things going on this week with CIG. And of course, the first thing we're going to talk about is the forums going away.
We picked out the two most interesting ones to talk about first, and then we're just going to blast everything else out.
Exactly. Well, of course, on the 14th, there was a little notification on there. The original forums are going to be going into archive. You will not be able to post in them anymore, and that's going to be the end of them. And everything's going to be going over to Spectrum. Now, in my personal opinion, this is a little soon. There's still some issues with Spectrum, especially on mobile devices. Right now, if I want to use my phone to post, I have to actually use another text program, copy and paste, and then drop it in. Now, I understand that that's going to be worked out and fixed, but I don't know. To me, it seems that until this gets to be a solid enough of a program to be used by anyone, anywhere, it's a little premature to kind of just remove the old one. We get a lot of communication from developers through this medium, and I don't know. If someone can't access it or something goes wrong, I still think it needs a few more weeks, maybe even another month, getting features in there nice and solid. I don't know. What do you think, Lightning?
You have a lot more experience with the forums than I do. I mostly just read them. So, you post me your phone and different things, so you have a much more clear aspect on this. And as far as like reading the forums and everything, I only do it on my computer. So, from my point of view, everything seems like fine and working. But you're on there a lot more. So.
Yeah, that's true. I try to stay involved with the situations going on, especially dealing with all the hot topics and debates going on about different things in the game.
It's just let's not beat it to death here, but
no.
I just want to bring it up. This is me bringing it up, not Jarvis, because he's usually the one that brings it up. There are so many people posting on the forums now, the new Spectrum forums, that are talking about game balance and IM and gimbals. And these are people from,
I've never seen these people before. I've never seen any of these. This is not.
Maybe they're new backers, or maybe they're people that have finally just had enough and they're speaking up. Someone linked a article on Reddit that was posted 3 years ago, talking about how you can't balance mouse with joystick, like the
zero order and first order.
Zero order, yeah. Sorry, I keep. I simplify.
I know. Well, it's because the devs have framed it in that way, and that's not the issue. It's in everyone's mind, but it's zero order versus first order.
It's like the word gender. Gender is not a word. It's not in the sense that people use it in.
So anyway, it's you're gonna see these things blowing up. I think I said when 3.0 comes out, there's gonna be a lot more feedback. A lot of people aren't playing the game really until then, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Back in the day, the evil twin of the Freelancer was considered to be the Caterpillar. And as the changes we've just seen that just came out with the Cutlass, I would have to say that is now the Freelancer's evil twin. The changes are impressive. When they showed the side-by-side of the old size and the new size. Now, the old one, you remember we talked about first ship itis, this whole thing where it looks like parts were basically slapped together like the original Hornet. You had a cockpit, you had an engine, you had a body, and they stuck it together and made a ship.
No, you didn't have a body. You had a turret. That was one of the things they designed separately. There's screenshots of it. Yeah.
So the Cutlass, the original model, was very much built, feeling exactly like this. It's almost like you could imagine. The neck was built, the hold was built, and it was all kind of slapped together. It was all slapped together. And it never felt...
They actually removed the little tiny helper engines in the middle because the devs felt they didn't mesh well with the direct design.
They were terrible.
And I agree,
they looked
they
bad.
Were kind of dumb.
They looked horrible.
Yeah.
So when they rebuilt it, you look at the ship now and you see a fully functional, solid unibody, thought out from stem to stern, completely and totally just
and it's pretty
unified
faithful to
ship.
The original.
Yeah, well, it's more faithful than what they put out by a long shot. And of course,
they're put up some original concept art here. Place concept art here.
Oh yeah, well, thanks for making me do that. Well, we talk about the whole power creep, the arms race to the bottom situation. When you look at what that ship can run, basically, the amount of size 3s that you can put on there, it's 4 size 3s in the front, and I think the turret's got 2 size 3s on there as well, which
Now,
means
aren't almost all of them gimbaled as well? It's got like 2 fixed and the rest are gimbaled.
Well, I mean, when I'm saying size 3s, I'm talking about the mount size.
Yeah, that's fine. I know. But I'm saying, aren't some of them gimbaled?
You can gimbal them all. I mean, there's 2 of them. 2 of them are turrets. Basically, the point is that when you place that turret, then technically, if they follow the pattern, that would probably be a size 5. You could strap onto the top fixed, and so you'd have 4 size 3s and a size 5 possibly. Now, might be wrong on that, but that's
for balancing reasons, they shouldn't let certain ships just hard mount it. That is not a fighter. That is a patrol craft. Let's say it for what it is. It's a patrol boat, and it shouldn't be able to be run by just one dude who's just the supreme badass. Now, I'm not saying we should force you to play with friends. You can hire an NPC gunner to be in the turret. You should have a reason to bring someone else with you. You're not just like this stepping up nonsense needs to stop.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're going to do that with the ship because they already sell and I already own a flash fire mount. Now, currently, you can't use the flash fire mount for the Cutlass in 2.6.3, which is now out.
Which is probably a bug.
There's no actual point to highlight and actually equip it, so I was kind of disappointed. But I did turn my Freelancer Dur into a Cutlass Blue because I had 3 exploration ships. Didn't really need a Freelancer Dur, a Terrapin, and a Carrack. It seemed a little bit overkill. So with that change, when I saw the design, I was like, the Cutlass is a good ship now. It looks good, it looks solid, and now it's well thought out. So all you Cutlass owners out there, man, I imagine you're
rejoice.
Just going to be, rejoice hardcore. Now, as I said, the Vanguard owners, when you look at what the Vanguard S offers, long range, heavy fighter, no cargo really to speak of. It's got four size 2s and, effectively speaking, a fixed size 5 underneath it. When you look at that, it's like, wow, the Cutlass has more firepower than the Vanguard. Of course, this balance comes along the lines of the range. Now, once again, the Vanguard is supposed to be something that reaches distances that no one else is supposed to be able to get to without having a carrier, for the most part, or be a really large ship with, like something that's like an exploration ship. It's very long range. Where the Vanguard operates, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of Cutlasses out there. And maybe that's going to be the balance, and maybe in that sense, like a Cutlass and a Vanguard may not engage really.
But let me pull you off topic here for just a second. Doesn't the Redeemer, the next great starship, doesn't that have more firepower than the Vanguard as well?
Oh yeah.
And they're relatively the same.
And they're
size.
adding more guns to it.
Yeah.
I mean, they said there was a blind spot in the back, so they're adding automated turrets to the back, and they wanted to add like a couple more guns to the front. And and once again, sometimes I don't think CIGs can be happy until they just have a ship that's just a solid gun. I mean,
it has to be a gimbaled gun.
It has to be
it has to be a gimbaled gun. So what it is you're sitting on top of a gimbal mount, and there's just a gun in front of you. Maybe there's several guns, and then you have a full 360-degree cockpit, and then underneath you is a bunch of thrusters.
I'm gonna call that ship the Redneck 9000. It's basically a space shotgun with a gimbal
now you're talking
point.
about just gluing parts together.
And it just fires this wide swath of destruction in front of it. You don't even have to aim anymore. It's like, just put your cursor somewhere in this section of the screen, pull the trigger, and it's all dead.
And to continue on this little random offshoot of topics, the next ship that comes to mind, obviously, that suffers from this quote unquote first ship-itis, is this is my horse to beat, is the Retaliator.
I agree.
Retaliator has 5 turrets with 2 size 1 gun each. Size 1 guns. And
on a military ship.
A military ship. Here comes a patrol craft, which has 1 turret. Okay, but it's smaller than my ship, and it has size 3s.
I know.
And that was my joke. Is like, we need at least size 2s, preferably size 3s. I mean, I don't think we should have size 4s on it, and that might be a bit overpowered. But like, that's where my stance was: size 3s. Well, guess what? Here's every bit of my validation that I've been saying for the last 6 months or a year. The Cutlass comes out, new Cutlass. Its turret has size 3 guns. Can you think of any other first ship-itis that has been suffering from this?
Yeah, I'd say right now, even if it was fully manned, nobody would be afraid the Retaliator was going, oh, look, free money. It's a loot
Yeah, and in
pinata.
fact, it's got shitty shields and there's no armor. That's supposed to be one of the most heavily armed, as in armored, ships in the game right now.
Right.
And it's just a joke.
Well, as I said,
only other
hopefully
ship I can think of would be like the 300 series that needs a bit of love, but they're kind of in
that's true.
that three gun holy trinity or trinity thing,
Yeah.
where the Aurora may not be the greatest ship around, but when you have the 4 guns on it, it can make up for the firepower. Plus, it's got missiles. And then you have the 300 series. You have the Gladius, which I think is overperforming right now. You have the Avenger. You have a lot of these 3-gun ships that are fairly well balanced with each other. And then you have the Outlier, the Hornet, and then even worse, the Super Hornet. And that's where it's just like they had
the Buccaneer on top of that.
They had this.
And now,
really
ladies and gentlemen,
good,
I introduce you to the Cutlass.
yeah, they had this really good, trinity of ships, these 3-gun ships, and then they just go out of control from there. It's just spiral out of control.
Well,
but I mean, I'm serious though. Can you think of another ship that is suffering from the first
I know,
fighters?
I know, and the thing is, Italy is a beautiful ship. I really want to see them go back over it again and kind of make it what it should be. What I keep thinking, all I have to do is basically I have to go to the rec store, buy some shotguns, strap it onto the Cutlass, biggest shotgun once I can get on there, and I've got anything in front of me, man, anything. I'm just gonna fire until I'm out of ammo. So yeah, I don't know, but as I said, the Cutlass, it is a beautiful ship. I'm glad to own one now. I was glad to remove.
It needed the update. I'm not saying that it's bad. It needed the update.
Oh yeah, and I like the fact that the engines don't swivel around like they used to. Now some people may have missed that, but it was a bad looking mechanic. Watch those engines that flip and spin and twirl. It looked like it had pinwheels on those. It was just terrible.
Because they weren't based on a rotationary period. They would just snap to the grid as fast as possible, just like the gimbals.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it was just a thing. As I said, it looked very cartoony. It didn't hold any sense of mass, a weight on those engines, and
when
the fact
it was
that,
shown in the trailer, in the ideal vision of the devs' heads, right?
Yeah.
Chris Scriber's mind, they were rotating within reasonable parameters.
Mm-hmm.
They did things physically, even though in reality the engines would be mounted dead center on mass to do that. Let's ignore that because it's a video game. It looked good, but in actuality, when you have this instant rapid response time, that's the actual game engine and game mechanics,
pacing,
that kind of beautiful realistic spaceship shit doesn't work.
Well, that's because the pacing of the game is not the same as the pacing you see in the commercials,
and that's the problem.
And this is why I tell everyone, once again, hold on to your shorts, folks. There's gonna be another change coming to the flight model, everything. I guarantee it's coming. Because Chris Roberts, look at the commercials, how he wants to represent spaceflight. Look at how he always, when he just uses his hands, he shows this banking and turn. We have nearly none of that. He's developing the game. He's not playing the game. As I said, hold on. If you don't believe changes are coming, you're in for a surprise. There's gonna be changes, and big ones. I can about guarantee it, because you can't have these dichotomies. You can't have these things that don't mesh to that level. The vision versus reality, he's not going to abide by that. Chris Roberts is a perfectionist. He's not going to say, here's what I showed everyone I want, and here's what I have. It's not, that's good enough. That's not going to happen. There's going to be another big shakeup, I guarantee you. Of course, they showed us more stuff on planetary outposts and went over a little bit why they're on legs, and of course their solutions for getting into the bases that are elevated. When they showed the video, they showed that
the solution is we play Subnautica and you just swim around because it's all underwater. Oh wait, sorry.
Well, yeah. When they did it originally, they were showing how the uneven surfaces would cause the buildings to clip into the structures. Now, I don't know if anyone here.
No Man's Sky. Cough.
Now, in I don't know how many of you remember or have played Star Wars Galaxies. Now, back in the day, when you put a house down on a location, it would actually.
My day, kids mowed the lawn.
Shut up.
Sorry, back in my day, you old man.
Well, I'm getting there. I mean, come on, I'm marching boldly towards 50 here, so I know I don't sound like it, guys, but I'm definitely closer to 50 than I was to 20. So anyway, so when you would place a house on the ground, it would actually level out the ground so that it would be, everything would be able to be placed correctly. And of course, with their system, they don't want to have to this building goes down and suddenly it's just all kind of flat around. You also see the same kind of thing in No Man's Sky, bring up that big ball of pain, but No Man's Sky, you'll see like a flat terrain and there'll be a base there. The same kind of thing, they level up, but it doesn't always level it off right. You'll have these weird things that happen. So what they're trying to do instead is they decided to go ahead and just put everything on stilts, which I think is a better solution. But then they came across the issue of basically getting into the house. And they tried these ramps, and they were at 15 degrees. And so you end up with like 50, 60-foot ramp, just for a few feet of lift. And they tried, reverse ramps that come back on themselves. It was too complex. And they said, let's just try stairs.
And the wheel was thus reinvented to be more round than you could possibly imagine.
Exactly. Sometimes the simplest solutions are just the best. So yes, they decided that the stairs were going to be the way they worked. And frankly, it looks better. And I'm
an interesting side topic to this, because I kept coughing and saying Subnautica. Subnautica did basically the same thing. Theirs is underwater, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But the thing with that game is they actually removed the terraforming option. I believe it might be they were talking about an actual terraforming gun. But I haven't been able to like deform the terrain when I was building in that, because it's a huge resource hog. Imagine if you have, let's say there's 200 planets that you can land on, and everybody's built 1 or 2 houses on them, so you have like 500 houses or something, okay? And then the game servers have to remember every single terrain detail and send that to everybody else that lands on those planets. That'll add up real quick.
It will, yeah. And with this system they're doing, all it has to do is the direction of facing, how high off of a center point from the ground, basically, and then the seed that has the layout. And outside of that, I mean, it's a much simpler amount of data to transmit than, we flattened off this whole area and we shaved this cliff down in this exact shape and formation. It's a much better solution. It's a much cleaner solution. I think it's completely awesome. And of course, we have this week's happy hour, which actually was not gameplay. So they actually did have a discussion.
There's a pattern here that keeps forming. Every time they play the game, it's not worth your time.
Yeah. Well, it was Matt Sherman, Patrick Salerno, and Matt Intreri. And they went over some interesting things, but let me just go ahead and summarize the things that I found interesting in it. Someone had asked basically about the HUD, and if they would be able to go ahead and do things like swap out the radar and stuff like that from 3D to 2D. And they said that they would like to do that, but before they would implement anything like that, they would need to design the alternate systems, the things you'd be swapping out to match the aesthetic of the ship types that it's going into. Now, I get that, but at the same time, I don't know, it'd be kind of cool to have a kit bash, I'm going to tell you, like it doesn't exactly match. Like, I mean, how personal would that make your ship?
That sounds very Drake.
Yeah, you rip a Drake radar off a thing. You basically bolt it onto yours. It's like
that would look really ridiculous, and now I want to see that.
Yeah, well, it would look ridiculous, but it would also look very personal. I made some modifications here.
I altered the ship.
I don't alter it anymore. Oh gosh. So
the shit just randomly bolted on in places, like loose wires exposed. Where you just rip one of the things out. Like I don't know.
Why does your Hornet wings end in Drake? Why does your Hornet wings end in Drake fins? No. So but also they're looking at retooling a lot of the MFDs so that they're actually more visible. And I completely agree with this, because a lot of times if you don't have track IR or something, and you have to look down and you have to try to see what those screens are. And anyone out there who's been in the verse knows that when you're looking out your cockpit, a lot of times you see a lot of the area in front of the cockpit, like the dash, if you will, all the way to the end. It's like, do I really need to see all that dash?
For days.
Right. So why can't we just lift up those MFDs so they go pretty much right to the top of my sight line, right, all the way to where the glass would be, and then fill in the gaps or make the screens bigger and readable, whatever. I don't need to see like dashboard. It's great that the detail's there, and I'm happy that it's there, but I don't need to look at it, and I don't need to put little bobbleheads on it or whatever the future plan is.
Bobbleheads.
Well, think how many bobbleheads you could put on the Buccaneers.
You could have an entire like the Fallout 4 collection of bobbleheads. There's like, I don't know, 15 of those fucking things.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like you could put. I mean,
Have a row of them.
You see how big the Drake Buccaneers dashboard is?
Yeah.
You could put like 100 bobbleheads in there, and they're all swaying to your movements. That would your game crashes because of physics. But the whole thing is that lifting those things up and getting them into a more usable, more visible location, and there has to be when you go back to look at like
overall cleaning up the cockpits across the board will help the game in the long run.
Yeah, because you can look at a lot of other examples out there from Evocron Legacy. The original Wing Commander has a much easier to read MFDs on there, and that's a much older game clearly. So they just need to go back and retool that, and I think part of it has to do with the field of view. They need to, all that needs to be retooled, and there's still obviously a lot of changes still to come. All right, and the devs said, of course, when they were asked what they were most excited about, they were all kind of unanimous saying the implementation of 2.0 item system. And, of course, they talked about the turrets a little bit, saying that they have a new setup for the turrets that they think will be
more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
They hope the community embraces and likes. We'll have to see about that. As I said, a lot of this I feel is a pacing issue. And also,
no matter what they do, let's just get the little tangent out of the way. No matter what they do, turrets are going to be ass unless they bring the combat speed down to a more manageable level.
Yeah, they want to have World War II style designs, and they have to have World War II pacing. And basically World War II.
No jets.
Well, at least as far as the idea of. As he said, he did pitch it as World War II space. A lot of people want to argue with and debate you about that, but there's been interviews, there's been videos. How many times does he have to say it? It's just what he said. Deal with it. That's just the truth.
Deal with
I'm
the
not looking it up for you, so
Drop down.
What?
The deal with the sunglasses.
Oh yeah, exactly. So anyway, the thing is that the pacing, I believe, is still going to be an issue. Plus, they've said that they've made several changes to turrets. In the past, and what they've done is they said they've worked well internally, but when they get them out into the live for the players to play, that there's a real issue. Now I think until we actually get the new net code, no matter what they do with the turrets, it's not going to be very effective. That I think
it's a twofold problem.
It is.
The pacing of the combat,
pacing and net code,
and the latency of the servers.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and it's not with pacing. It says the faster you make not only your target move, but the platform in which your turret is sitting move, it makes the response time for the operator, and they not only have to deal with those changes from what he's sitting in to what he's targeting at, and that
which is why I've said that the turrets shouldn't quote unquote counter the movement of the ship. They should be independent from the movement, because if they're countering it, they're being applied force. And
but that only applies to half the issue, though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if they have, let's say they're using 30 rotations per second or per minute or whatever, and you apply even more with your mouse or your joystick or whatever, maybe your gamepad, whatever controller you're using to turn, you're applying even more force to your turn, and that's where you're probably going to be getting some latency issues, because you already have a force applied onto it. So if you just make it independent, make it its own entity, maybe not completely, but
so yeah, it's one of those things that, once again, pacing, it's going to be an issue until they come to the realization of where the actual problem is coming from. Wink wink at you, Ben, and Disco Lando, wink wink nudge nudge, know what I mean? Maybe they'll figure it out someday.
The pacing is too damn high.
Oh no, I'm gonna have to throw that picture in.
I don't know where it's from.
I do.
I just remember something too damn high. The rent is too damn high. Is that what it is?
Yes, the rent is too damn high.
I don't know why you're laughing so much. I don't get the reference.
I'm gonna send that to you after this is
okay.
This is
so
done.
Anyway, damage states in the atmosphere won't be any different than space, apart from the fact that debris in the atmosphere are affected by gravity.
Yeah, and I have an issue with the way that was presented. To me, it sounded like, when they were talking about it, okay, for a long time, everyone kept saying, what's with the wings on these things? What's before we had introduction to the planets, what's with the wings? What's with the wings? Well, I thought, great, we're gonna get an atmospheric flight model. So, okay, great. Vehicles with wings will have lift. They'll handle better in the atmosphere. From what they're saying here, it sounded like, okay, the wing gets blown off, and my ship basically still flies the same. And to me, I was like, so is there or is there not an atmospheric flight model? I know it's not supposed to be a perfect one, but at the same time, if having wings on or wings off doesn't effectively change, like if I lose my left wing and still have my right wing, don't you think that would affect the way that my Hornet would fly in an atmosphere?
No,
I personally think it would.
It'd fly perfectly fine. It's a known fact during World War II that planes would completely fly normally even when they got shot in half.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I hope that's something that they actually do address, because I don't know. To me, it seems like they were missing a real opportunity there, and kind of just once again going back to the why aren't we just flying spheres? Because clearly
that's what the game wants us to do.
Yeah.
The thing is here, having a basic atmospheric flight model is something that I personally would be okay with. I don't care if, like, let's say when you go into the atmosphere, depending on the atmospheric number, like if it's an atmospheric number of 1, you get like a 20% drag like on your ship. So you accelerate slower, you have a slower top speed because you're pushing against it, or maybe it's only it's a 0.5 atmospheric effect, so you only get like a 10% reduction. Or let's say it's double the atmospheric thing.
They actually on the original one they showed the planets, the new ones with the Aquila, and they showed safe speeds as they were getting lower to the ground. The safe speed went up. I mean, they went down. Because the atmospheric pressure was higher. So basically, they've already got that tabulated into the game. But I think like if you lose your left wing, like maybe your ship would, like, I don't know, for example, just this basic one would roll to the left or want to fight to the left because you've lost your lift.
You mean it knows the maneuvers?
Yeah, well, exactly. So, so basically, you don't have to do anything overly complex, but there should be some representation of what's just happened. Like the same way, like if you had lost, if you're in a Connie, all right, and you lose your thrusters on your left-hand side, that thing has no wings. That's going to be an interesting flight. So, what do you do with that besides basically spin out to the ground like a bad firework? I don't know. I just saw those fireworks, the kind that you nail to like a post and it just spins and the sparks go everywhere. That's because when it fires off, that's exactly the image I just had when I saw the Connie thing and all the thrusters gone or all the things on one side. But anyway, no. So it's one of those things that you would imagine that at the very least, if you lose wings, you have to fly slower because
you're damaged.
You slow with a
that'd be
lean.
a nice not like a common ground, I suppose. Like if you have a certain percentage of damage, especially if you have wings, basically you apply a modifier into your ship. MFDs, not MFDs, ionized, whatever. You have a basically a 1 or a 0. If you have your wings, it's a 0, which means there's nothing being applied. If you're missing a wing, a 1 gets applied and it lowers your speeds. You have to fly safer. So if they did that, see, I'm all in favor of simplifying the flight mechanic as far as
we expect sim light. We don't need to have like hardcore sim light. That's fine.
No, and that's why it's kind of like, because the less complicated it is, the easier it'll be for them to make it. So if you just had like, oh, the left wing is damaged. Okay, well, that's like a 5% reduction in speed. So depending on your atmosphere, you have a reduction in speed. And depending on the level of damage you have a reduction in speed. If both wings are blown off, you'd have like a 10% reduction in speed or something. And that'd be a really simple way to balance it without it going into like, oh, well, in reality, if a fighter that was based to fly both in atmosphere and space lost its wing and it entered the atmosphere, not only would it probably the broken bits on the wing would spark an internal fire from the pressure of the air compressed underneath it and cause the ship to actually explode, but even if it didn't explode, it would just go into a spin because it's got no we don't need that.
I have IL-2 for that.
Yeah, we don't need this incredibly deep and complex mechanic. I mean, as long as you can give us a space flight mechanic that is versatile and is customizable and works across 90% of the controllers, maybe not 90% of the controllers, but 90% or 95% comparability between mouse, between joystick, between your gamepad. Because hell, I might play Star Citizen with a gamepad. I don't know yet. I personally like the gamepad. How dare I? But it's just we don't need something that is so overly complex that it's unplayable.
Yeah, well, I think most of us who looked at when you think of the original Wing Commander, you're thinking, you're not thinking like hardcore sim. You're just thinking sim light. Like you don't look at the X-wing games and think hardcore sim. You think sim light. You're not thinking Kerbal Space Program. So it's just one of those things that it's a matter of defining your terms correctly.
Star Citizen would be unplayable as a Kerbal Space Program game.
Yes,
just flat out, it would not work in any way.
Well, of course,
that's why I'm okay with them not having quote unquote physics attached to everything. I know they're got a hard on about it, but we don't need it.
Yeah, no, not for everything. I mean, they can fake some stuff to a degree. I have no problems with that. And dealing with the planets, you're so obviously you managed to keep your wings. You managed to not like spiral out of control and then hit a Connie into the Earth like a corkscrew.
Redheaded stepchild.
They've addressed the issue with the landing on uneven ground. Of course, the landing gear will flex and bend at the appropriate joints if you come down on uneven land, and even the ramps in the back should adjust to a certain degree to allow.
The landing gear has suspension now. That was a couple patches ago. Well, not patches ago.
You saw it in the 3.0 demo, basically, and that's important because But I think what they also need is, once again, I know there's people out there that hate this game whenever I mention it, but I still have to, because when you do something right, you do something right. But Elite Dangerous, when you land on planets, when you're flying over, you get and you pop out your gear, you get an indicator that says, "Hey, this is a good spot to land." Your radar basically turns green. It goes right here, buddy. And so you bring it down, and
they can combine that with planets and landing pads. A landing pad is always going to be flat.
Yeah.
But if they can have a system that says there's flat level ground below you, as in like a radar, basically.
Yeah.
They can apply that same technology to planets, or vice versa, so that you have, I can land here. It's within, I don't know, 10. Or no, I'm thinking percent. It's within a 10% slope.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be like that. It'd be like within like a 5-degree angle or something.
Yeah, and the last thing we need when it comes to that kind of thing, especially when we're looking at the landing on uneven surfaces, is that we need a horizon indicator, a level indicator on our ship itself when we're trying to land, like saying, "Hey, this is even in level. This is even in level." Yeah, like for example, once again, Elite Dangerous. As you get closer,
Space Program.
As you get closer to the pad, this line indicates on the left like you're getting closer, and this other one basically like, are you level? And so it's like you give these indicators to the player, like, am I only landing on one landing gear and then slamming the other two down, or am I going to go ahead and get these all three down at the same time?
Because I'm pretty sure that game locks you into the first person view.
Like I said, some ideas out there are just good. It doesn't matter so much about where they come from. A good idea is a good idea is a good idea.
I'm 100% sure that Elite Dangerous was not the first person to use this system. So
No, but it's just a good example.
It's the most recent and easiest to reference.
Yeah, big time. All right, guys. Well, that's everything for this week's BlastCast. And once again, leave comments down below. We appreciate any feedback out there.
The
Ramblecast. It's exactly. We're still avidly waiting 3.0 or some sort of information about anything. If it's going to go to Evocati, we know nothing. We are Schultz. So.
The goggles, they do nothing.
All right, guys. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.